On today's show, the Capitals' great start, and when it comes to scoring, Alex Ovechkin really has John Tortorella's team's number.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you all for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals' great start to the season. And it's been more than just the start, but it's a good time to reflect during this Four Nations face-off of what this team has accomplished and what lies ahead. I guess I could say it's a bit of a bummer, if you will, that none of the Capitals players were selected to participate in this Four Nations face-off. But like I spoke about in yesterday's show, it might be a blessing in disguise, as I think a lot of the players that are injured and could use a break should be able to return back better than they were before they went into the Four Nations face-off. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about interesting statistics when it comes to different players. And in this particular episode, I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin. We know that Alex Ovechkin likes playing against the Winnipeg Jets. He also enjoys playing in Toronto. But when it comes to head coaches, Alex Ovechkin has a really great knack on scoring against certain teams. One, John Tortorella is the coach. I'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, a serious note when it comes to a Capitals prospect by the name of Cam Allen. But just get it going here, talking about the Capitals, as this is a good time to reflect about what this team has accomplished thus far. Again, many people pan this team as not being able to accomplish much of anything. Even some of my fellow Locked On hosts, our preseason predictions, they said, I mean, the Capitals, you made a lot of moves, but let's face it, they're not going to amount to much of anything. Quite to the contrary, as they have been huge. So today what we're going to do, we're going to dive into exciting news surrounding the NHL's pause for the Four Nations face-off and how our very own Capitals are making waves and surprising a lot of the insiders or the people that know the sport the best. The Capitals have shown impressive performance with a record of 36 wins, 11 losses, and 8 overtime losses, totaling 80 points after 55 games. Quite stunning what this team has been able to amass this season. And, you take a look at the last game, even last game against UHC, they didn't get the result that they were looking for, but they were able to pick up points. And that's kind of been one of the things that separates this year's Capitals team than other teams that, of course, they would like to win all these games, right? But even in the games that they don't win, they get the full points, they'll still make it to the shootout or overtime where they'll at least collect a single point. Now, this places them at the top of the Eastern Conference, well ahead of the Florida Panthers, who sit second with 71 points. So there is a bit of a cushion there, all things considered, but the Capitals cannot be complacent. It is a league of what have you done for me lately. So when the Caps return back to action, once all of this Four Nations face-off is ended, we hope that they can pick up where they left off. There's not any rust or anything of that nature. In the entire league, only the Jets have a better record, signaling bright prospects for the Caps. And that's a promising sign that, you take a look at the Winnipeg Jets, another team I think that is surprising a lot of people as well. The Jets historically have had a pretty good team out on the ice. This team right now is very good, as we remember the last time the Caps played the Jets. Now, This season, a lot of attention has been about Alex Ovechkin and his quest for greatness, chasing down Gretzky and all the milestones that he's knocked down between here and there. And a lot of spotlight has been put on Ovi in that chase, despite being left off the top 50 players list at the beginning of the season. Ovi is proving his haters wrong. Battling through that leg injury that he sustained against Jack McBain, he's still leading the Capitals with 26 goals and 17 assists, totaling 43 points. Quite stunning that, there was a lot of question about what he was going to be able to accomplish, being that he sustained that injury. And what do we remember about Ovi is just due to the nature of the injury, he was able to get back to skating shortly after the injury. Now, currently at 879 career goals, he is just 16 away from breaking Gretzky's record of 894. How exciting is that? Again, a lot of the people that like to project and do those kind of things project it will be April, 10th against Carolina. It is going to be an exciting time and definitely a game if you can make it to, if you have the means or watch it on television, it's going to be quite something. Now, the really good thing about this year's team is it's not just built around Alex Ovechkin. There are rising stars on this team. Dylan Strome has been a revelation this season, leading the team with 54 points and 16 goals and 38 assists. He is a guy that has taken his game to the next level, that is for sure. Again, I still marvel at the fact that the Blackhawks kind of just let him go. I bet you they're looking at that one now thinking he is the one that got away. And let's not also forget about Aliaksei Protas, as head coach Spencer Carbier would say, who's having a career year with 22 goals and 46 points. Again, I'm going to be honest with you here. When he got that newer contract here a bit ago, I didn't know if it was worth it. I didn't know if, him being on a cap. I mean, I knew he was a good player, right? But I did not know that he had within him what we have seen out on the ice this season. And the really good thing about Aliaksei Protas is I think we're just starting to see just a glimpse of ultimately who he is going to mature into. Really exciting and a fun player to watch. Again, the confidence is building. He's using his frame to his advantage. Aliaksei Protas is going to be a player to watch. And one of the players that the Capitals acquired in the offseason, the one that was met with a lot of snickering and laughing, was Pierre-Luc Dubois. Has made a significant impact with his first year with the Caps, contributing 44 points, while Jacob Chychrun as well, another key addition over the summer, is emerging as a key point producing defenseman. So that is talking about scoring. That's forwards, and Jacob Chychrun on the blue line. That it is a mixture of players that were already here, players that have taken steps forward. I'm talking Dylan Strome and Aliaksei Protas, and also Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is having a rebound season, proving to everyone in the NHL that I still am a great player. And the Capitals and former GM Brian McClellan are looking like a genius at this point. So, but it wasn't just that. Another stroke of genius was in net going into this season. Of course, we know that Darcy Kemper was sent out to the Kings in return for Pierre-Luc Dubois. And my initial take on it was going to be Charlie Lindgren or Hunter Shepard in net, or possibly Clay Stevenson. But former GM Brian McClellan did a really great thing by acquiring Logan Thompson via trade. Quite something what he was able to accomplish this past summer. Logan Thompson, listen, we knew he was another player we knew was going to be good. He is a guy that has a chip on his shoulder based on the fact that he didn't feel like Golden Knights netminders got enough credit. That a lot of the coaches said, the net minding's good, but it's ultimately the defenders in front of them are the ones that are saving the netminders. So he had a fire in his belly to prove a lot of people wrong. And also that fire was stoked in his belly, you better believe, when he was left off the Four Nations face-off. I cannot wait for Logan Thompson to face the Golden Knights again at some point here, and just to really, really stick it to the team that didn't do him so well, shall we say. So Logan Thompson, who's been having a phenomenal season this year, acquired from the Golden Knights during the 2024 NHL draft. Thompson has racked up 24 wins against just 2 losses and 5 overtime losses, with a .921 save percentage and a 2.23 goals against. He is the guy that got the new contract, and the proof's in the pudding. I mean, what we saw out on the ice, I guess the last game against Utah was kind of uncharacteristic of him, what we saw this year, but he is what many people perceive second place in Vezina voting, rate behind Connor Hellebuyck. But hey, if he can turn it on and say, Connor Hellebuyck, dried up a little bit or lost some steam, anything is possible. But challenges ahead. It is not going to be smooth sailing. You better believe it. They're in a good position right now, but is it sustainable? And at the end of the day, the Capitals are still missing players. But ultimately, I think the players that we acquired are actually a step up. Nick Backstrom in his heyday, there was not a player, a center that really did much better of a job. He is responsible for more Ovechkin goals, serving up those sweet passes than anyone else. And T.J. Oshie, Mr. Clutch. I think the Capitals ultimately are missing Nicky and Osh, just not, specifically on the ice. I think more generally the ice and in the locker room. 2 leaders, Nicklas Backstrom a little bit quiet, but TJ Oshie, a vocal leader, beloved by teammates, fans. But Nick Backstrom was a quiet leader. Didn't need to be verbose. He let Aliaksei Ovechkin be that guy. But I still think, especially for players that have been here for quite some time, I'm talking Aliaksei Ovechkin and Tom Wilson, John Carlson, that in the back of their mind, they're probably thinking to themselves, guys, this team is a really good team, but it sure would probably be nice to have Backy and Osh on the ice. But as we know, Backstrom has been dealing with that hip issue for years. Ultimately, this is the last season on his LTIR, and probably that will be it for Nick Backstrom. He did the hard thing by getting that resurfacing procedure done that didn't respond the way he had hoped. And TJ Oshie, as we know, has been dealing with back issues for years. He was the guy that had to lay on the floor, urinate in a bottle, had to have his doctors flown in from Minnesota just to put him back into shape to get him out on the ice. Ultimately, I wish Nicklas Backstrom and T.J. Oshie nothing but the best. Huge contributors to this team, but ultimately, they're injured. And, T.J. Oshie might be able to get in some games here, but I think that would set him back ultimately if, he got injured again. He said he's good in his day-to-day life, but when it comes to getting on the ice and getting bumped up, that's when he has problems. Now, despite these challenges, the Capitals have truly exceeded expectations this year after just barely sneaking into the Stanley Cup playoffs last season. Remember that? It came down to the final game of the season and then subsequently getting swept by the Rangers. They're making a strong case for a legitimate run at the Cup in the 24-25 season. Is it possible? I definitely think it is, as long as the team can stay healthy. Knock on fake wood here. That I ultimately think they have a truly great team out on the ice. And, this, if not now, when? If this team isn't built for a playoff push, then what team is? Let's go all in. Let's hope that Chris Patrick shores up any holes in the lineup between now and the trade deadline to make this team truly a contender as one of the best, if not the best, in the NHL. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we'll talk about Aliaksei Ovechkin and how he has a knack for scoring goals against teams that John Tortorella is coaching. It's an interesting thing, those inside analytics. I'll break it all down straight ahead. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast, easy? Just use Indeed when it comes to hiring. Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Now, that is the frustrating part. If you are involved in the hiring, the firing, dealing with applications, make your job that much easier and use Indeed. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So next, let's talk about Alex Ovechkin and how he has a knack for scoring in certain buildings. He likes playing certain teams, analytically stands up really well against them. Well, in this segment, we're going to talk about an interesting statistic that Alex Ovechkin can really find the back of the net with regularity on teams that John Tortorella is coaching. It's one of those little head scratchers. Why is that? Why could that be? Is it John Tortorella's systems? Let's dive into that in this next segment. John Tortorella, as we know, is the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, but not just the Flyers. I mean, he's made his way around the NHL, has officially set a record as being the coach of the team that Alex Ovechkin has scored the most goals on. Ovi scored his 879th career goal against the Flyers. That was back on Thursday, marking his fourth straight game finding the back of the net during that time. With the latest tally back then, he's now achieved this impressive milestone an incredible 34 times in his career. It has to be that, isn't it? It's just the coaching systems. I mean, different franchises, different players. How could it be anything else? John Tortorella's new record. This goal means Tortorella's teams has allowed 35 goals to Ovechkin, surpassing Lindy Ruff, who previously held the record at 34. Now, for me, what's particularly fascinating is that Tortorella has faced Ovechkin, or his teams rather, more times than any other coach, 15 more matchups than the next closest. Now, even with that many encounters, the interesting part for me is that Tortorella has managed to keep Ovechkin's goal per game average against to just 0.492, which is notably below Ovi's career average of 0.600. Now, the dominance over coaches, it's not just Tortorella. If you are number 2 in goals in all of the NHL, soon to be number 1, chances are that you've scored on a lot of different netminders, on a lot of different teams, and the Rubik's Cube probably has fit that, okay, he scored a lot of goals against Tortorella's teams and also Lindy Ruff's teams. But what other coaches? It showcases the ongoing rivalry between Ovechkin and Tortorella. But just to give you a sense of Ovechkin's dominance, here are some other coaches he has notably scored against: Peter Laviolette with 33 goals, Barry Trotz 14, and Gabby Bruce Boudreau with 13. And Gabby is one of my favorite coaches, former coaches, and I liked the banter that went on between Gabby and Alex Ovechkin when Gabby was the head coach for the Capitals, and even when he isn't, it seems that those guys would kind of get into some chirping, if you will, back and forth. And I think that Alex Ovechkin took some pleasure in scoring on his former coach, or his team rather. Looking ahead, it's always something to celebrate when Ovi continues to break records and etch his name deeper into the history books. Again, at the end of all of this, I think that we could make a movie or write a book about Alex Ovechkin's career. If it was just him catching and passing Wayne Gretzky, that's one thing. It's if, him helping his team win a Stanley Cup, that is another thing. But it is all of the other milestones between here and there. So quite something what he has been able to accomplish through his career in the NHL. And at the end of the day, I ultimately hope that he can continue to keep chipping away against John Tortorella and these other coaches. You take a look at Barry Trotz. He has moved into a different role as the GM of the Nashville Predators, and Bruce Boudreau, who's more into broadcasting now. That he's been in the league a long time, but you got to think that it is especially sweet when he can score goals on those coaches that he's had luck with historically. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about a story I didn't know if I wanted to cover. I think to do my due diligence as someone that covers the Capitals, I kind of feel like I have to. It is a serious topic, but I think that it is one that bears being spoke of. It is about a Capitals prospect. It is about Cam Allen. I'll discuss next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action, and if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Now listen, if your team is playing well in the NBA, or say they're not, maybe you're a big Lakers fan, just considering with the trade between the Mavs and the Lakers, it doesn't matter. You can open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, all of those games got that much more exciting. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in this segment, it is not something that is a fun topic to talk about, but a serious topic rather, about a Capitals prospect and what happened here relatively recently. So I will just get right to it. Today, we need to address a serious incident involving one of the team's prospects. And if you are a fan of the team, no doubt you've heard of the Capitals prospect, Cam Allen, who has been charged with multiple offenses following a troubling event early Saturday morning. So involved in an incident here. And I will get into it. Again, generally, I try to keep it to exclusively hockey topics, but being that it is a Capitals prospect, I feel like I need to dive into it here. Reports from the London police indicate that around 3:20 a.m., they received a call regarding a single vehicle collision. Witnesses noted concerning signs, including blood on the driver's side door and leading away from the vehicle. Police quickly responded and discovered Cam Allen, who plays for the OHL's London Knights, not far from the incident. So if I am going to take a moment and discuss this, I feel like it is my due diligence to say that if you're drunk driving, if you are buzzed driving, do the right thing and don't drive. There's really not a lot of excuses anymore why you're drunk driving. There's taxi, there's Uber, there's Lyft. There's all of these kind of things, or it is going to a friend's house and maybe sleep it off if there's not a lift or wherever you happen to live. I know there's remote areas where those things aren't as plentiful, but there is never an excuse to get behind the wheel of a car when you're drunk or buzzed, because not only are you putting your life at risk, how about the guy that's just trying to get home from work? What about the mother that is driving home from work with her kids? And you're putting all of those lives in jeopardy because you wanted to have too many drinks. So do the right thing, if I can say one thing here. So the consequences and charges: sadly, one of Allen's passengers sustained minor injuries and had to be taken to a nearby hospital. As a result of the investigation, Allen, who's only 20 years old, is facing serious charges: impaired operation of conveyance, driving with a blood alcohol concentration above the legal limit, failure to remain at the scene, failure to report the accident, and for being a novice driver with a blood alcohol concentration over 0. So too young to be drinking and driving at the end of the day. I'm not sure it was for the Ontario Hockey League what the laws are in that jurisdiction up there, but in any event, it doesn't matter his age at the end of the day. He did the wrong thing. It's not up to me to put a punishment on him. But if there's one thing I could say about anyone in a situation similar to this, is do the right thing. You take a look at him. What's important, of course, is the person that was injured. We hope them nothing but the best, but the possibility of other people that could have been injured. But even from his hockey life, that is definitely something that could be a mark against his hockey career as well. That is secondary and third. That's way down the list, people's lives. But what I'm saying is that if he valued even his hockey career, he's got to make better decisions. Now, the team response and future steps: the London Knights released a statement acknowledging the situation, noting that Allen had been released from custody, but is set to appear in court on March 6th. Now, they've also mentioned that they're working to gather all relevant information and are in contact with the OHL League to ensure proper conduct measures are taken. For context, if you are not familiar with Cam Allen, for some reason, Allen signed an entry-level contract with the Caps this past summer after being selected in the 5th round of the 2023 draft. He had a solid season, just from the hockey perspective, putting up 42 points in 45 games, split between the Knights and the Storm. Looking ahead, this situation has certainly set back Allen's career, as it should. You can't just go through life making blunders like this and think that you're going to get away with it. And again, I'm not in the business of trying to, make him feel bad or put punishment on him. But what I'm saying is that if I was him, and if you are in a similar position, this is what it's all about. A guy that had a promising career, depending on how his, respective teams want to deal with it, that could spell the end of his career. There's always room for growth and that kind of thing, but a real poor decision on his part. As fans and followers of the team, will be keeping a close eye on the situation. And of course, I hope I don't have to bring up subjects like this in the future. Again, I had to think about it for some time if I even wanted to talk about this topic, as I try to keep it hockey exclusive related, but being that it is one of the Capitals prospects, I felt like I needed to do my due diligence and talk about Cam Allen. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.